I'm doing it by Mika Cardozo.
Here.
Tony Genovese, Finance Director, Administrative Officer.
Here.
Jerry Shaw, our clerk, is here.
Here.
Pua is recording us. Sandy Stein.
Here.
She's here. Thank you. Joe Dye.
Here.
Thank you. And Joe Crisco.
Here.
Wonderful. Did I forget anybody? I don't think so. Okay. Jerry Weiner tuning into this? Gonna need him for part 2. Well, somebody want to reach out to him or something? We'll keep going.
Beth,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes, Jerry, there you are. Okay, great. We were just wondering. Okay. Where you were. Okay, great. You're here. Fabulous. We don't see you, but we hear you, which is okay. All right.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Now you see me.
Great. Item 1 on the agenda is to, now we see. I don't see you, but that's okay. There you are. Yep. Okay. Item 1 on the agenda is to adopt the certified resolution for the Senior Center STEEP grant. This is something that is required related to the STEEP grant for the Senior Center. Do I need to read the entire resolution, Jerry?
No. If everybody has it, it's fine.
Okay, it's been reviewed by town council as well. It comes from Stephanie Charleglio. And it directs me to execute and file an application with the Connecticut Department of Economic Community Development to provide additional information to execute the STEEP grant. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve that. Thanks, Sandy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dwight. Is there any discussion on this?
You might just want to mention, Beth, how much. You might just want to mention how much it's for and whether or not that would cover the entire project as it's conceived.
It will not cover the entire project as it's conceived, and it is an amount not to exceed $128,205.00. Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. You're welcome. And I will call the question unless there's any discussion on this further. Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. That moves us a little step forward to a new senior center, which is wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I have some remarks before we get to item 2, which is update on the projects considered for funding. We're here this evening before we begin our FY22 budget discussions to finally move forward on several projects that have been pending for many, many years. First is the proposed renovations to our senior center. The center building was erected in 1929 as a center school. The building served in that capacity. Could I ask everyone to mute if you're not speaking, please? Thank you very much. The building served in that capacity until the second wave of students moved to Beecher School in 1977. The senior center, left in its original condition for over 40 years, has long been in need of a facelift. Much has been accomplished, but much more needs to be addressed to complete the long overdue renovation. The currently planned upgrade is necessary to meet the evolving needs of Woodbridge's expanding senior population. 750 Woodbridge seniors over the age of 75 are quote unquote aging in place and living independently in their homes, providing services for the demographic. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Providing services for this demographic is crucial to the town's finances as our senior citizens lower costs by not adding to the school population. Accomplishing the long identified and generally accepted need to upgrade the senior center makes it possible for these seniors to remain in town with the human services staff providing a lifeline of vital services. The current institutional state of the facility lacks the warm and inviting setting Woodbridge seniors deserve. An upgrade is definitely necessary to provide proper services in today's world. Just look inside the town's beautiful library and compare that facility to what is available for local seniors. Over the past several years, through state and local grants, fundraising efforts, the Human Services Staff and Human Services Commission have worked very hard to reach this goal. Our town can be proud of the new handicapped accessible bathroom, the urgently needed new ramp, the freshly painted walls, carpeting in the lounge. But without town funds, welcoming reception area, proper lighting, and crucial air handling system, equipment cabinets, and other necessary items are not possible. Currently, the town has a newly awarded, which we just voted to move forward on, state grant of $128,500 to begin this renovation. To complete this project, we will need approximately $250,000 in borrowed funds. The second proposal for this bond project includes vital plans for the old firehouse to become a community center for multiple uses for all town residents. As a bit of history, in 2003, a building committee was formed by First Selectman Amy Morella to work with an architect to develop space needs for a proposed new fire station. The fire department was at that time running its operations from the current old firehouse. In July 2004, the then building committee recommended to the Board of Selectmen that a new fire station totaling 25,426 square feet was needed. After many months of discussion, the Board of Selectmen voted to reduce the size of the new fire station from 25 to 20,000 square feet and allowed the fire department use of the old firehouse for the additional 5,000 square feet of storage they needed, which included use of Bay 1 and Bay 2. The formal charge for the new fire station building committee was approved by the Board of Selectmen on April 13th, 2005 for the construction of a new 20,000 square foot facility. There was a fire at the old firehouse on October 7th, 2006. Following the approval of a referendum, construction of the new 20,000 square foot building, new fire station began in January 2008 and was completed and dedicated in March of 2009. Final uses of the old firehouse have been discussed since the fire in 2006. Phase 1 of the restoration of the old firehouse included replacement of all exterior windows and a new copper roof. This began in 2010 and was completed, and this work was completed by early 2011. In 2011, the town entered into a contract with A. Urbano Construction for excavation and providing the concrete foundation for a 42 feet 6 inch by 42 6 inch storage shed behind the new fire station. $180,000 was allocated by the Board of Selectmen for the entire project, including the shed. Unfortunately, it cost $150,000 to put in the new concrete foundation. The understanding was always that the fire department would still retain use of 2 bays at the old firehouse. That work was completed in 2013. There were subsequent conversations about the shed, including the town possibly purchasing the materials to build it on the concrete foundation and having volunteer fire department personnel construct it. That was deemed unfeasible due to insurance liability. We then completed the performance of various work at the old firehouse in mid-2019 for approximately $500,000 following award of a state steep grant. This grant was used to upgrade the electrical system, add new roofs on bays 2 and 3, and install new mechanical units for bays 2 and 3. Work was completed in early 2020. From 2012 through present day, have been numerous options presented for the phase 2 renovations of the old firehouse, which is essentially interior work along with further mechanical and electrical upgrades, an ADA compliant elevator in consultation with Silver Petrocelli Architects. We now have an option this evening for the town to have sole use of the entire old firehouse for a brand new community center, including Bay 1 and Bay 2, and for the fire department to have the shed behind the current fire station to house additional apparatus, equipment, and supplies. The fire department would have all operations in one area, and the town would use the entire old firehouse for town use. The estimated cost is $500,000 for the shed. The town would borrow $370,000 and use $30,000 remaining from the previous shed project, and the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association has agreed to contribute $100,000 to complete the project. I thank them for this generous donation. The estimated cost for the community center is $1.7 million, including soft costs. Lastly, the proposed Beachy Road School roof refurbishment project is designed to encompass 3 roofs, the D-wing roof, the K-wing roof, and the media center roof. All were constructed in circa 1997 and all continue to have intermittent leaks. This project is designed to refurbish rather than replace the roofs, and the approximate cost is $15 per square foot, whereas roof replacements cost approximately $25 per square foot. So we're doing a refurbishment versus a replacement. Total estimated project costs, including contingencies, are $573,650,000. These, I'm not a money person, you can tell. These 3 roofs are the most necessary to address the other roofs, which were either replaced during the 2015 Beecher building renovation, A wing, B wing, and C wing, or were inspected prior to the 2013 solar panel installation and deemed adequate in the S wing. As Tony has reminded us, borrowing rates are at historic lows, with rates for 20-year bond for a triple-rated community such as Woodbridge at about 1.5%. In addition, annual direct debt service payments declined 20% in FY 2022 and are the lowest in 10 years, primarily due to the payoff in recent years. Open spaces from 1998 and 2000, library renovation from 1998, and Beecher renovation from 1998. In my opinion, this is the best time to do these projects. I will thank you for your attention, and to begin the discussion, I'm going to make the following motion, and then we can all begin to discuss this. I move that Tony Genovese is authorized to begin discussions with bond counsel for the preparation of documents and resolutions in order to call a special town meeting pursuant to section 6-4 of the charter for purposes of undertaking the following projects. Number 1, authorize expenditures for the senior center renovations and improvements in the approximate amount of $250,000. Number 2, authorize expenditures for the construction of a storage shed on property of the town firehouse in the approximate amount of $370,000. Number 3, authorize expenditures for roof refurbishment and repair at Beecher Road School in the approximate amount of $573,650,000. Number 4, authorize expenditures for conversion and renovation of the old firehouse into a town community center in the approximate amount of $1.7 million. Mr. Genovese shall report back to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance with the results of his discussions with bond counsel for purposes of scheduling a special town meeting to authorize the above expenditures. And with that, I would ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you. And then with that, I would now begin to ask the Board of Selectmen to opine on the motion. Whoever wants to start. Anybody out there?
Yeah, I'll start, Beth, Dwight.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the old firehouse, the restoration of the old firehouse is definitely long overdue. Since the fire back in 2006, that building has essentially been really empty since that date. So it's been 15 years, and it's about time, because it is a jewel right in the center of town. When you enter Woodbridge, you come into the center of it. That's one of the first buildings you see. So I think it's very important that we do that. As such, since we have to move the from the FD out of the existing firehouse, we have to have the shed so that we can move them, so we can do the restoration of the existing firehouse. I'm okay with the roof. Being in the construction business, roofs do tend to wear, and you have to repair them every so often. The leaks. And then I think the project of human services also is long overdue. So I would recommend that as well.
I also think that being able to take advantage of the low interest rates for borrowing is critical at this point. We've had these projects around for a long time, and this will help us tremendously, I think, in terms of impacting most residents in the town with these projects. And I think Tony's advice to do this now is appropriate, and I look forward to him being able to negotiate a good deal with bond counsel.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Mika?
The funding also includes not only obviously the interior renovations that are required on the old firehouse, but it also includes some money for the exterior as well. And between that and the senior center in particular, I feel it is very important for us to move forward on those projects. And it is something, as Sandy had indicated, that would really have a very positive impact in regard to the community. Folks do want to get out, will be wanting to get out more, as you might expect. And I think it's important that we provide the opportunity and the venues that will bring people together and just make Woodbridge a little bit more positive from a community standpoint. And I think those projects in particular do that very well.
Thank you. You know, I was thinking last night when I was driving back from Mom's coming up the hill, that we have this gorgeous building who's a gateway to it's a gateway to our community and our town center, and it's being used for storage. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's time to, you know, after 15 years and certainly 40 years at the senior center, and it's a great time to put this all together and get it done. So I hope
let's turn on the light switch, right?
yeah, exactly. Joe Dye.
Yes, I'm here. So I'm going to follow up my question the last time we talked about this. I'm still not clear. We talked about these all together. It wasn't clear in the motion. Have we decided we're dealing with all these at once, or we haven't decided that yet? We're waiting for what comes back from Tony and bond counsel.
I think we're going to wait until we hear from bond counsel as to whether they all could be included in one bond package or whether they have to be done individually at the same special town. And I think, Tony, that's one of the things that Tony is going to be talking to Joe Fozzie about.
Right. So we haven't decided that yet. We're waiting to see, because I frankly don't understand why we would offer all four of these as a package to the town in one town meeting. But that's just me. And if we do, I can tell you I won't vote for it. But that's another matter. So I'm just trying to figure out before we go too far down the road where we're going with that. But if that decision is for another time, then I'm okay, certainly, with Tony exploring the options. But I don't think they should all be done together by any. So how do you feel like they should? How do you feel they should be split, and why? Well, I think they should be split because they're separate projects, and I don't know why the townsfolk would have to have four projects. Either agree to four projects, or get four projects, or get no project. These are separate projects. I just don't understand why we would offer them as a package.
Joe, would you have four separate referenda meetings, whatever, or would you have two together, or how would you?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know all the detail. I mean, I know referendums are expensive and so forth, but so I guess we'd have to put all that together and assess with all the facts. But just in black and white, I don't know why. If someone were to ask me, well, do you want to do the firehouse? Maybe. Do you want to do the one of the other three projects? Maybe. But if you offer, do you want to do all four projects or not? Maybe. I mean, I might say no. I don't want to do all four projects, which means we get no project.
Joe, the only comment I want to make is that I don't necessarily think we would borrow. Let's say just the senior center was approved. We wouldn't necessarily spend $60,000 to borrow $250,000. That's what would be my only.
I can understand that, which is why I say we'd have to know all those things. And I have no problem agreeing to go forward to put all that together, because I admit I don't, as we talk here today, I don't have a a financial picture of what it would cost to do it separate versus what it would cost to do them all together. And so, as I say, I'm just kind of thinking of it without all that information from the standpoint of why put 4 projects that are unrelated in front of people and say, do you want all 4? Someone may say,
Joe,
yes,
I just
and
have one
someone might say
comment.
no.
Joe, I just have
guess-
one comment. One comment. Certainly, the renovation of the town center and the shed are linked together. It's going to be hard to separate them because I think one is dependent on the other. So at least those two have some commonality. But your points about the other ones are well taken.
Yeah, I can see you're talking the shed and then the old firehouse. Yes, I can see where those are somewhat put together depending upon exactly what we would decide to do at the old firehouse. If part of the old firehouse didn't include anything for the fire folks for storage or whatever, then yes, they're together. I can see that. But the other two are totally separate.
Right. I think one of the other points that David Stein made to us is that the cost of these projects are less if we do them all together, because the same crews and the same contractors will be working on them, as opposed to them being done individually. So there is a cost savings there as well.
You're talking about the firehouse and the shed.
I think it's all of them, Joe, that the costs that he gave us were based on doing all the projects. And therefore, that would bring down the cost of the construction for everything because of the large scope of work.
So he's proposing to have the same contractors do all 4 of those projects? I didn't understand that, but that could be.
I do remember that, but maybe I think so.
Hey, Joe, Dwight.
But I think that's kind of the information that we really need, not piecemeal, but we need to have it all in front of us and then be able to assess with all the facts how we want to proceed.
Hey, Joe, Dwight. Really, let me just try to maybe. Hey, how are you? Let me try to, as part of being in the business, all that. What David is trying to do, and what we thought would be, we could put the firehouse restoration, the shed, and human services under one contract. Bid that under one contractor. Therefore, you have one project manager, one superintendent. You don't have multiple people that you have to pay, and you could probably save 5 to 8% on the overall cost by doing that. I would not recommend putting the Beecher roof under this thing. That'll be bid separately because that's basically under a separate contractor. That's a roofer. That's not a general contractor. So that would probably be bid separate. But we would try to package all 4 of these into a bonding resolution to try to get them done.
Right. No, I understand that, and I think you're probably right. I couldn't imagine the same contractors doing all those projects, but listen, I understand there may be some efficiencies to doing all 4 together, even from the bonding standpoint. And I've heard everyone say that, or a lot of folks here say that now's the time to borrow. And yes, the interest rates, the bond rates are good and so forth. But again, I just don't. And I know I'm the outsider here. I'm just voicing my opinion. I just don't see why. And Joe, actually, I guess it's 3 projects now, because I do agree that the 2 are somewhat connected.
And
so
just taking one more.
We don't have to beat it. We don't have to beat it up. I guess if once Tony gets us all the information, and we know about all these things that everyone's chiming in on and saying, would be great. Let's put this all together in a presentation. I mean, we're going to have this information when we go out to the public and try to say to the public, hey, we want to do these 4 projects. Other people are going to have the same questions we're talking about now. We might as well put it all together. And it's prudent for us to have all the information to make the decision. And as well, we're going to have this information for the residents as well.
Joe, for whatever it's worth, the reason I asked the question as to, what you thought and why was very specifically to Dwight's point. I saw it as 2 projects possibly, only because there was the firehouse and the firehouse, those 2 projects, as you said, are easily linked together. And there was the discussion that the senior center being where it is, and it would be included under the same bid or the same group, if you will. So I saw a grouping of those, and then the roof. And my sense is the roof is a more of a repair type of a thing as opposed to a renovation, etc. I see it being different, but it's something that's needed. It's not something that we're looking to just make an improvement on, which is optional. How we do it may be optional, but the fact that we need to do it is required. So why not just include together? So all I'm doing is just explaining the rationale that I had in terms of them putting it all together.
No, and listen, I understand that, and I'm not saying there isn't some rationale for that and some good points there to put, but I'm coming from, and I think from a different angle, and maybe it's wrong, but you say it's needed, and I may say it's needed. We all might say all 4 are needed, maybe not, but for argument's sake, we all say it's needed, but it has to go to a town meeting.
Sure.
And maybe not all the residents think that all 4 are needed.
Totally agree.
They're going to be asked to approve all 4 or not. That's my point. So if the majority of people don't want all 4, you may get none.
We may get none on this run. And then I'm sure we would take it back. And at that point in time, there would be a need for a second session, but it almost seems as if we should see if everyone does agree first, and then let it kind of manifest itself rather than starting with 2. Let's see if we can get it. If you're right, the public is the one who's going to decide. Period. End of story. So if we packaged it and that was a mistake, we find out and we've got to live with that. But
okay.
I can definitely see some combination. I can see some rationale and logic behind having the 3 in one bucket and the roof, and putting the roof with the 3 seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, and I don't totally disagree. I guess what I'm saying is, let's put all let's get it all together, and then we can see whether the rationale is really there or not, rather than do it anecdotally. Let's have Tony do his thing and find out where the efficiencies are, where the money is, and so forth. And I just raised the issue again because I wanted to know if we're all dead steady to just do all 4 at one time, then that's fine. That's the way it's going to go. And that's the way it kind of sounded from the start. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Joe. That's great. Joe Crisco, you've been quiet. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have something to say?
I think that it's important that they're all presented to the people that is needed. And I still feel we should change the name shed to a storage facility.
Okay. We can certainly explore that, Joe. Thank you. All right. So does anyone have anything else to comment on about this motion and the second? So with that, hearing nothing, I will call the question. You don't need me to read it again. It's pretty simple. Okay. So with that, all in favor of the motion is read, seconded, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. I just want to bring to your attention, there's a couple of things that are, shall we say, festering out there that we might want to think about getting pricing for. Not that I want to add money to this project because it's up there as it is, but there might be a possibility. As you know, we have the demolition of the clubhouse over at the Woodbridge, the Country Club of Woodbridge, which is, we don't have any idea certainly in what the price is. It's very rapidly becoming a liability, as you know. So that is something that maybe I would ask Tony with the consensus of the board, just to get a price on, not to go forward unless we could talk about it, you know, as part of another package or this package or whatever. And also the other thing is getting a price, just getting a price, not spending any money on perhaps adding sidewalks to the town center. We have some. There's also, Tony, what is it, about maybe $100,000 left in the old firehouse project? Is that the number that I heard?
That's for landscaping and site work and exterior work to the old firehouse, correct?
Right, so we may be able to use some of that for some interior items we want to purchase in addition, or we might be able to use it for, I mean, to me, sidewalks might include, I mean, landscaping might include sidewalks. I don't know. So I just like to kind of get that data, even though it may be crazy. Just if you wouldn't mind, Tony, and I just ask for consensus of the board just to get the numbers, if everybody feels that's appropriate. Do I?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Just getting price, just data, information. Mika?
I think Tony loves doing that kind of stuff. I think it's we should go forward with it.
He's laughing in his chair there. Oh yeah, give me more work. And Joe Dye, you think that's okay? Just to get the data?
Info. Love data. Love info, yes.
Okay, and Joe Crisco?
You cut out for a moment, Beth.
Joe Crisco?
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, I cut out. I'm sorry. I'm having gremlins here, and they're at town hall, and they've flown over to my house. Okay, so thank you very much for that. There's no time on this, so with that, I think Tony, I'm sorry, but you have your work cut out for you. Good luck, and thank you very much, everyone, for getting this moving forward. I'm excited. Item 3 on the agenda is discussion of the 2022 fiscal budget recommendations to file with the Board of Finance. I think we have to have this completed by, Karen's here, she knows all that stuff, March 4th. But we can hopefully get most of it done this evening.
Yep, Board of Finance meets March 4th.
Okay, but we want to get it done sooner than that.
You have until March 1st, according to the charter, to get it to the Board of Finance.
Maybe we can make some serious dents tonight. I'm confident. So with that.
So Beth, this is
Yeah.
Jerry. I just one thing. This is above my to bail out you
Okay,
guys. Okay.
okay. Thank you very much for your help this evening, Jerry. Take care. She's leaving. Okay. So you can see in your packet,
Okay.
there's a
See
memo.
everybody. Bye
Bye.
bye.
There's a memo from Tony in your packet headlining all of this. Attached for your review are 5 documents containing preliminary recommendations for the fiscal year 2022 budget. We're going to use them during our meeting this evening. The budget summary, the mill rate calculation sheet, the detailed line item budget, revised revenue estimates, and the capital improvement program with its 6-year summary. So with that, I guess we should start with the budget summary. Does anyone have any questions on that, or should we just use that as a document to begin digging in?
Beth, before we begin, I want to just present.
Oh, I'm so grateful.
It's okay. I thought it'd be helpful.
Take it away, man. Take it away.
Okay. I thought it'd be helpful just before we begin, we sort of look at this year to year. I thought it'd be helpful to look back a few years to see sort of what trends have developed over time for our budget. And it'll just take a few minutes, but I thought maybe you'd find it helpful. So I'm going to put this on my screen. Jerry, could you have me share the screen here?
I gave it to you, Tony.
Okay. All right. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from FY16 to FY21. These are our revenues, and so you can see that our tax rate is over that period has gone up about a total of 7.5% over the 6 years. So it's been pretty stable each year, and as has our department charges have also been pretty stable. You can see throughout the years. We've had some volatility in our investment income and our other revenues. I'm going to show you the next slide. This is graphically, we'll show you, I think, a little easier. But these are our tax collections. So you can see they've been pretty stable, and there was a decrease last year. These are our other revenues. If you go from left to right, each color represents a year. So you can see each revenue category over the last, say, 6 years, and how our non-tax revenues are pretty stable. Our intergovernmental revenues dropped in 2018 when the state had some financial troubles and have never really recovered. So you can see it's a pretty significant drop from that time, and has been stable since, including next year. Our department charges usually hover around $900,000. Some of that's dependent on some of the fees that we collect, including the building permit fees and conveyance fees. Our investment income, although it's not a lot of money, tends to be somewhat volatile here, you can see. And other revenues, and this is an important point I want to bring out, contains mainly the fund balance allocation and the Amity surplus allocation. So you can see that it's increased in recent years, mainly because of the surplus, and can be a source of volatility if the surplus is no longer there. So those are our revenues. These are our expenditures. I did it by major category, which is town, Amity Board of Education, and Woodbridge Board of Education, because those are sort of the three that we tend to group in our budget. And then by subcategory, which is general government, public safety, public works, community services, benefits, debt service, capital, and then the two boards of education. So you can see over the past, since 2016, the town portion of the budget is actually down. You'll see FY16 we were at 19,147, and it's 21 was 19,125. So you can see there's actually a reduction there. It did go up in 19 and 20, but then was reduced from COVID in 21. So you can see there's an adjustment there. And then the two boards of education are 16 and 12% respectively. So our budget over that time period in total has been up 8.5%. And I did the total in each year. So you can see the total in each year. I think if you look at it graphically, that's sort of it graphically, right? So you can see the town, Amity, and the Woodbridge Board of Education. I wanted to break down the town portion just a little more. And so you can see here that in the town portion of the budget, the general government has been decreased, and that's mainly the planning departments, finance, selectmen's office. You can see that's been decreased in recent years. Public safety has increased over the past 6 years, so you can see the impact there. Public works has been flat. Keep in mind, all these departments have salary increases for staff of 2.5% each year. So in each case, the departments, in most cases where you see they're flat or reduced, the departments had to adjust their operations accordingly in order to have a reduced budget. I'll say, for instance, in public works, there was a mechanics position that was eliminated, and there was a parks director eliminated earlier in 16-17 timeframe. And then capital fluctuates here on the end pretty wildly based on the needs at the time. So That was the extent of the presentation. I just wanted to, any questions or any,
I think that's very helpful, Tony. And it really shows that there's not a whole lot of wiggle room with the town departments. I mean, basically to have been kept flat since 2015-16 is pretty amazing. And I don't think it's due to, you know, having more money than they need. It's just looking for efficiencies, consolidations, not replacing positions when someone leaves, and really looking at how to do the work differently.
that's an excellent point, and that's what has happened in a lot of departments. Finding different ways to accomplish either doing more with less, or in some cases doing less with less, and that's sort of the reality. So.
Yeah, I completely agree, Sandy. I find it very interesting that we clearly support our schools.
Yes.
That is the reason for our budget increases every year. The town has, all of our town departments, our employees, our staff have been fabulous at, even with, as Tony said, the 2.5% annual, salary increase every year. We still managed to keep things flat, and yet the schools continue to, go up. So we do support our schools. And that's why we're here. I mean, we do, it's what brings people to town. But just it's so good to see that, Tony, put that out this way, Tony. It's very helpful. I agree with Sandy completely.
Okay.
Tony, I don't know if you're in a position to do so, but you just having this information up there as we speak about the budget, if there's an opportunity and you can put the information we're discussing up there as well, like you did this, I think it'd be very helpful.
What information is that, Mika?
Just as we're talking, if there's particular documents that we need to.
Oh, I can do that. Sure. Yes. Yeah.
So,
okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone has any other information or anything else you'd like to see, I'm going to continue to work on this information for future meetings in the budget hearing. I think would be helpful. So.
What we talk about often and we don't really see illustrated, Tony, is just what Sandy mentioned earlier in terms of, and what you mentioned as well, the increase as far as salaries are concerned and the impact that has on the budget. In other words, what percentage of the budget is actually that portion of our expense and how much it is as compared to what we're doing with the monies in the other areas.
Yep.
So it's very clear that, okay, if whatever the money is for salaries and for the people that we have, here's what it is, and here's how much it's gone up, and why, obviously, versus everything else.
Right. I can do that.
And when I say salary, benefits obviously is part of that as well. So
you'll see the salary parts go up, and you'll see other areas go down. That's what you're probably looking to see.
Correct. Exactly right. And it illustrates very nicely. So.
Yeah. Okay. I can do that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, and I think, Tony, and Mika, those are great points, is that many of the efficiencies and consolidations that have been implemented over the last 5 to 6 years have enabled us to remain, at the 0% increase, really, for the town services. And I think in terms of information systems, computers, how we buy office supplies, printers, I mean, all of the things that we've talked about and you have implemented, Tony, over the years are the reason that we are where we are. But eventually you run out of those. And my concern is that I feel like we're really at the end, that there isn't a whole lot more that we could do to cut the budget in a major way.
Unless you want to majorly impact services.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what's left. You're right, Sandy.
And I was really struck as I went through the the recommendations that you shared with us for discussion tonight. And I think it just points that out. There's not that much opportunity to really shave off costs. There's some, and obviously capital is a big one. But the other types of ideas that we've had in the past unless there was a major shakeup, are just not there.
Yep. I agree, Sandy. You will note that the budget request totaled a 7.73% increase. And after working, Tony and I tried to begin to take a look, and we got it down. It's 4.17%, which is still up there, but we started. So now I guess we would look to you guys. We can go through each department. Tony, how do we do this next? I forget. Just start to go through each department.
I will let me just go through briefly some of the information just so we're all on the same page. And I will so the information you have here in front of you contemplates a 4.35%.
Tony?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tony. I'm
Yes.
sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I just felt compelled before we move on to that piece of it, just based on what Sandy said, just to say out loud what I feel just kind of something that needs to be said. In essence, the way out of this, or the way going forward, because we are so at the end, we've gotten to a point now where the only thing to do is, like you said, cut programs, cut people, or something along those lines. The only alternative is development. And it's important that we start as a community looking at our options and our opportunities for development and to bring in additional revenues, which is the only way we're going to control taxes going forward from what we've seen so far. And if I'm wrong about that, I'm wrong about that. But it's just something that I feel we do need to say out loud and understand. So I know there's a lot of strong feelings about it both ways, but I just wanted to say that as we were talking about this on an overall basis.
So the one piece that I didn't present was the decline of the grand list, which is
Right.
Good point. Yeah.
But I think, Mika, that's a very important corollary, and people do need to understand that. Because if we don't have sources of additional revenue that are not just, home real estate taxes, it will be extremely difficult for us to sustain ourselves.
Yep.
So, sorry for the interruption, Tony.
No, that was good, Mika. Thank you. Very important point.
So, Tony, maybe it would be helpful because many of the departments, there are no changes.
Right.
And so maybe if what you did was highlight the changes that you did make.
Okay. We can do that.
Those departments.
Should we start with capital?
We can, sure.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the capital budget, we tried to review wants versus needs and try to recommend those projects that we felt were important. They're all important, but what we felt were something that we can fund this year. And so the Board of Education, it's of course the roof replacement, which has bond funds, and the technology infrastructure. Those are the two items that we felt that perhaps the asphalt replacement can wait until some of these others, a few other projects here that maybe can be done at the same time, including the flooring and the HVAC and the. So that was the for the Board of Education. Under the Board of Selectmen, the sidewalks, and that was what we had applied for a grant for, and we did not get the grant. But and Beth had indicated earlier that we could investigate what it would cost to put sidewalks in the center of town, and a lot of that information is what we applied for that grant for, and is part of that figure. And so I can present that at the next meeting, and you can decide whether or not you feel you want to add that to the bond issue. The wayfinding signs, we're currently looking to get donations for those and get sponsors for those. And we feel that we can, the other communities have been successful. You've probably seen them as you drive off the Merritt or other exit or entrance or exit ramps, and you'll see sponsors on certain signs. And so we're hopeful that we can have sponsors for those and not have to move forward with that. Let's see. Next, we go to the Fire Commission. There's a slight reduction on engine 3 because that's an actual lease payment that we have, which is the 175,528. They had requested 180. Their request was an estimate at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The car 201 is a replacement of the fire marshal's car. We're actually looking to see if we can maybe lease that over a period of years as opposed to paying for it all up front. And so that's what that recommendation entails. And we kept in the Amicus tool. I know it's 20 years old and it's the jaws of life, basically.
Yeah, the name implies jaws of life. I felt personally that you can't not replace that. And you can't have one if you have two vehicles that are in an accident to break into two vehicles at the same time. You have to have two of them. So, and as Tony said, it's 20 years old. I think, we don't want it to fail.
The next adjustment is in the library. We just moved that out a year for the carpet replacement. In the Parks Department, we postponed the irrigation improvements at the center field and at the West River Complex until we're conscious of the COVID environment that we're in, and that I didn't realize I didn't have my video on. In that COVID environment that we're in, and that we wanted, it was at this time something that we wanted to move forward with.
Hey, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah, just a question on the irrigation on center field. I know that's got a lot of leaks and it really needs to be, updated a little bit, and if they need money to fix it or whatever during the year, I'm assuming they can get some money to.
We could, absolutely. I always work.
Keep it going, that's all. I'm just worried about the fields drying up and we're not having irrigation or whatever. And then we had a problem like we did a few years ago.
Right, I remember. Right? Yeah, we could certainly do that. And he had put it like $10,000 a year to replace it in 2026. So he was contemplating not replacing it for another 5 years. So we figured we could invest it at that time. But in the meantime, I work with him regularly on that. Absolutely.
Good. Okay. All right.
Let's see. Police department, we eliminated one of the vehicles, kept one of the vehicles. In public works, we just adjusted the some of the reserves based on some of the actual information on the equipment reserve. We didn't feel it was necessary to buy all the equipment that was requested, but we kept some money in there for some of the equipment that Warren had requested. Here. And the question every year is a road reconstruction reserve. That's a question, and it takes up a large portion of our capital budget. So we reduced that to $650,000. We do have some funds remaining from the previous year, so that should bring that up above $700,000 for the road construction season coming up this summer. Warren had requested in his equipment reserve a tire machine, and started putting funds towards a reserve for a backhoe and a payloader and a boom mower. And but those purchases weren't contemplated for many years, so we didn't think it was necessary to fund those at this time. We can look at whatever financing opportunities exist as we get closer to that date.
I think that's a good strategy, Tony.
Yeah. Instead of raising taxes now for something you might buy in 5 years, you know. The bridge reserve we reduced, but we still have to keep money in there because we need to do the stormwater management. And that's what that's for. And the volleyball court, we figured we can accomplish that in the current year budget. And so we removed that from the rec budget. It's $4,000. Sure, I can work with John to. We think it's a good idea to keep the sand in the court, but I'm sure we could probably work something out in the current year budget. So those are the adjustments. Brings the capital budget to $1.2 million. And are there any questions or?
I think it's all very logical, Tony, in terms of, what you did. And that kind of matches. We spent 1.2 last year around that.
Yeah, 2 years ago we did. Last year was a little less, but it was about $1 million. Yeah. And if you look at your budget, and it should be, anywhere from, there's a rule of thumb on how much your budget should be, and it's usually 2%, 3% for capital.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually sort of the guideline.
Okay.
So we should be anywhere between $1 million to $1.5 million.
Okay.
Because you want to keep up on some of your capital. You don't want it to get to a point where you have a lot of capital needs if you don't keep up on certain things.
Right. Well, one thing I am concerned about is everything that's in the Beecher budget.
Right. I was thinking the same thing, and there's an issue there where they've got some significant needs, and there'll be some big dollars there, so there may be some future borrowing or some future funding needs.
I just think we're going to have to think of a plan because these amounts are not possible to fund from our yearly capital budget.
That's correct. You're right. Yeah.
Good.
Particularly if the items have a life of many years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a lot of these items in here are shorter term life. If you have something that has a long life to it, you typically borrow over that life.
Correct.
To match the.
Yeah. But I think we should make a point of working on this with the new superintendent.
Right.
And really try to formalize a plan for how we're going to approach this going forward. Obviously not for 2021, 22, but after that.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions on the capital portion of the budget? Tony, thank you for driving us through that.
Okay. The next one I wanted to do is the revenues. This shouldn't take that all that much time. I just wanted to go through this. On your revenues, the first thing I wanted to mention was that the governor's recommended budget came out, and the grant fund amounts are exactly the same as they were last year. So we were happy about that. We did not lose any money from the state, and so that was a big help. The only other adjustments I'd recommend here are I increased a little bit the building permits. Increased that just a little. They seem to be doing very well, and other than that, there weren't much changes to this particular revenue budget. The one risk in here is interest income, and the question is, will the interest income, will the rates return, or will short-term rates continue to be where they are? And I just don't know. That's a risk. I figured we have a very healthy fund balance, so that could be a risk worth taking, or we can reduce that.
Do you feel, Tony, that the Amity surplus funds number is a risk for us?
No, that's money we actually have, because their operations from FY20 we get in 21 for the budget in 22.
Got it.
So that's actually money we have. It's next year
That we have a
where
problem.
we'll have a problem, may have a problem.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
you can see it's not, I mean, it's a pretty sizable amount considering compared to the rest of our revenues. And so to have that volatility sometimes can be difficult
Oh, I agree. And
as opposed to, you know,
well, plus if the percentage of students that are from Woodbridge continues to go up,
mhm,
that's a big liability for us.
right.
I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, but if there's that, and then we aren't going to collect the quote surplus because the school decides they're going to keep 2% instead of just 1%. I mean, all of those factors. So,
Right.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Tony, what's next? You want to start with the operating, or you still got other stuff to go over?
No, the last piece of the puzzle is the operating budget. Those are the department budgets. And I don't know if you want to just review each department and then I could just, go over the changes, or does that work?
I think if we just went over the budgets that you made some modifications to, that
Okay.
would be sufficient.
Yep.
We don't need to do every single one.
Okay. So the first one then you would go to is the town clerk. We made a few minor modifications to the town clerk's budget. First is in general professional services. In some cases, we just reduced some items a little and to reflect actual expenditures, and the repair and maintenance of equipment and machinery that reflects their actual copier expenses. As you can see, 2 years ago, they spent about $3,800. So I don't anticipate them spending more than $4,000. Election supplies. There's, other than the Amity referendum, and I'm not sure if there are a lot of other elections that'll come up. So we reduced those supplies a little. In terms of the capital and furniture and fixtures, we're hopeful to, if we have some contingency in some of these capital items, we may, some of these minor capital requests, we could, if we have contingency left, we could hopefully use that.
Okay, that makes sense, Tony.
Yeah.
And certainly with election supplies and things like that, if they need them, we have to find them.
Of course, we would, of course, do that. Right?
But at least, we can find a little bit of cost savings there. And as Tony said, I like the idea of trying to find the capital, what she needs, file cabinets or something, we could perhaps find them in contingency this year and not have to go out to next year for that.
Yep.
The next one is the registrars, and the registrar sent us a note that they had made some assumptions were incorrect in their part-time all other account, so we reduced that account accordingly. The next one is in finance,
Mm-hmm.
and I reduced the banking fees because we received some new information on that. We've made some efficiencies in our structure. We're able to save a few $1,000s on our bank fees.
Great.
Those are a lot of times, it used to be when interest rates were higher, just to float in your daily activity, you covered all your fees, but not anymore.
Hey, Tony, one other thing.
Yes.
1145 info system.
Yes.
From 30 to 40, is there a reason? Are we paying more for that, or is that something that?
Oh no, so that's I put in some additional funds for some cybersecurity work we need to continue with in monitoring, and so it's the amount we're paying is the same. It's just we're having increased demands on our IT infrastructure.
Okay, no, I was just curious. That's all. So it looks like
And I plan to use that with all three departments, police, the fire, and the town, as a town-wide approach. Let's see. The tax collector, we just made a few minor adjustments, nothing significant, a few $100 here and there.
The next one was police.
Police, right. So in the police department, we adjusted the overtime, and they seem to average, if you look at the projected budget and the actual you'll see they average roughly $150,000. Oftentimes, however, they have savings in their salary line, whether it's due to injuries on workers' comp or some vacancies or similar things. So they tend to balance each other out, which is why I reduced that a little. At the end of the day, the two lines tend to balance each other.
Hey, Tony, on salaries for the chief and the deputy chief,
Yes.
we're showing an increase to 2.83. Shouldn't it be 2.50? Is everybody getting the same?
No, that's a good pickup. Everyone gets 2.5%, but the police chief and the deputy chief, their agreements that they have, get their. If you'll see in here, there's a DFIB certification, and they get some additional certification funds before they get the increase. So it's built into their salary as opposed to it being as part of a different line. So they're still getting a 2.5% increase, but there's a small amount they get that goes. Karen, do you know what that is? Is that for the
It's the DFIB certification.
Yeah, it's a DFIB certification, right? So instead of getting it separately, like the rest of the department, theirs is built into their salary. That's how it was agreed.
Okay, all right, okay.
Now that may or may not be the case with the new deputy chief, because that's a new position. So there's new terms for a new position, but that's how it was budgeted.
Right, that was my other question is, why are we increasing that if we don't have?
You don't have to. You can reduce it if you want. You want to make
like a deputy chief.
Question.
I'm just taking a look at it. We don't know
This
they're going to get one and what his salary or her salary.
it's an excellent question and an excellent suggestion. I can tell you that I did remove the longevity. So you'll see the longevity is about $14,000 lower, $13,000.
Yep.
That was because was the deputy chief's longevity, which I did remove because obviously the new chief won't have longevity the first year. But the salary is a good question. I don't know where that's going to come in, and you could make an adjustment if you feel necessary.
Has a decision been made as to what they're going to do moving forward?
I know that the position is been advertised, and I believe the applications are due March 1st. Or other than that,
What do you have a sense of the timeframes associated with getting that completed? You know, the whole process?
I don't. I think the chief was saying by the time they interview and they go through the process, could be May or June by the time. And then if they hire someone from somewhere else, they have to probably give a notice where they are. And if it's not internal, if it is internal, then it'll flow through this,
No, I'd like to, if it's possible, I'd like to keep that assistant chief salary the same as last year.
Yep, we can do that.
Yeah, I think that them.
Didn't hear that last part.
And whatever it is, we can always adjust it whenever they hire him or her, whoever it may be.
Yep.
Whoever it may be. We don't know what the salary is, but trying to guess right now what it's going to be when we don't know who the person is.
That's fair.
Okay.
I would do that.
Okay.
Good point, Dwight.
And then Tony, going down to the data again, it's up 8,000. Is that what you're talking about earlier?
No, the data is up there because, as you know, they're doing this new project and they have some new, they have some new, maintenance contracts and the like that they have to, with all their new equipment.
Right. Remember, as part of that presentation, Dwight, that we had.
Yeah. I was just curious. I just took a look at it and when you say data processing, I assume that was part of the same. We just
so it is part. It is part of the same. Part of that money, it is for the same company that the town uses and that the fire department uses and that police use. We all use the same company. We just have it split up in different budgets, but we all take advantage of the same opportunity, the same efficiency.
Right.
And so that's where the police portion is.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. Okay.
And then you did make an adjustment in the computer.
The computers here and the capital machinery, maybe an opportunity for some, I indicated earlier, some contingency money. But I'll discuss that with the chief and see if it's really a priority.
Yeah, that was also part of his presentation.
Right.
New computers and all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
And next is fire.
The fire department, the chief, the fire marshal, we have a 2.5%. That was an adjustment they had requested, 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Part-time maintenance. The question here is, this is a COVID expenditure primarily. So the question is, do we fund it half a year and see how, if the pandemic improves, or do you fund it the whole year? If you fund it half a year and then we fund it the rest of the year, we can adjust it at that time.
Yeah, that's what I saw you did when I looked at the adjustment. And that's smart. That's okay.
Yeah. So if it's still necessary, you have to fund it. You know. There's a couple of accounts here which we just brought back to last year's budget, hoping that the fire department can work and try to work within their existing budget. And that's with medical expense, repair, maintenance, and machinery and equipment, telephone. Those are all just brought back to last year's in training. If there's any issue there, we would certainly have to fund it or review that with the fire chief to see if And finally, the capital machinery as another example of something I'd like to fund this year. Half of that in contingency, and then the other half I kept in the budget. So I think the total amount of contingencies items is like $20,000 when you add up all the different ones. So it's not a lot of contingency, and so I'm keeping an eye on that contingency balance. I think we'd be okay with the snowfall, because we have a vacant position in public works that we haven't filled yet. So they have some funds in their salary line to hopefully cover their overtime. Okay. The only concern I have is our legal expenses, which,
yes,
that's the area that's going to get us
on many fronts, unfortunately.
Yes.
But I like your strategy with how to fund the operating capital requests. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Now let's see.
Next is recreation. I'm sorry,
public works.
Public works.
So again, in public works, it's the same question with overtime that is in police. And again, public works tends to have that same dynamic with their highway wages. So I think we're comfortable keeping that at 50 for next year. In terms of the contracted services, Warren had increased the tree work and we just reduced that a little, like $20,000. And highway sand, salt, and maintenance, again, that's a weather dependent item, and so we dropped it back to last year, primarily back to last year's, and we'll see what happens. The next item is in recreation.
Mhm.
And the recreation and library have sort of the same question, which is, where do you fund? I mean, the other than the wage item, the only other item is the $1,400 for the TVs for the fitness center, which we figured once we have a fitness center, then we can worry about the TVs. But the question on the salary, on the seasonal wages, John had already recommended 50. That he would look to reduce it by $50,000, and I had a discussion with John. He said if I have to do another 50, I can look and see what I can do, and so he was willing to work with us on that. I explained to him that if things change and it looks like you're going to need more money, and he was they were conservative on their revenues as well, on their fees, so they have the luxury of if they increase programming and they increase their fees, we can use the fee money to help fund their wages. So that's sort of where that sort of came from, that discussion. The question is, how are the program going to work in this, with the upcoming year?
Going forward.
I think as long as we can be flexible so that if the demand is there and
Right.
it's safe from a health perspective, that we're prepared to meet that demand. I think
Right.
that they do run important programs,
And I agree with that.
especially
Yes.
in the summertime,
Yeah.
that we would want to be able to fund.
Absolutely. And I like the camp, for instance. I know he's planning on going forward with camp.
Yep.
And so I think that's
It'll have to it'll be significantly reduced as it looks right now, but also they're very conscientious about any programs that they put in, trying to make certain that the funds that they collect, the income is covers whatever expense might be associated with those. So if there, as things progress, if he needs to do more, he's generally pretty good about doing that.
I agree. Yeah. And I said, I told him if there's an issue, we'll revisit it, as Sandy said, and we have to fund it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole school.
Yeah, obviously everything isn't going to magically change July 1.
No.
And we're dealing with now the unknowns of variants and how they're going to impact if we're all vaccinated. But wouldn't it be nice to think that maybe by the end of this calendar year, we might be all kind of back to normal, and maybe
Not all.
just be flexible, as you said, Sandy.
Yes, and I think it's important for recreation to know that we're supportive of them expanding their programs when it's safe, that there's an appropriate need.
And the library is what there it has to be. You just see what happens.
Yeah. So I guess my concern with the library, because again, it doesn't have to be an all or none, opening. And I mentioned at our last Board of Selectmen meeting that at the Library Commission, we did talk about a staged and sequential reopening, not from where we are today, all of a sudden to everything's open. So did you have that discussion, Tony, with Eric?
In general terms, but not specific dollars, no.
Okay.
So I could certainly do that with him, and we could, I can make that adjustment in the Board of Finance.
Okay. I would like to get his buy-in into how does he see a gradual reopening happen, and how would that translate into dollars and cents?
Okay.
And I saw that you also did cut the books budget, so I didn't know what the rationale behind that was.
It was just to not increase it back to its level where all in 1 year, just to maybe do it over 2 years. That was the whole rationale.
Okay, and I would just make sure that Eric understands that.
Right.
I think one of the problems is that we're relying a lot more on the digital media, which is more expensive actually than buying the books.
Right.
And the Friends have been terrific in terms of helping to support that initiative. And I just want to make sure that they would have the resources to, let's say, make up for that difference if needed.
So do you want to keep these where they are, or do you want to make any adjustments?
No, I'm okay with your proposing a reduction. The more important thing to me is the gradual reopening plan.
Right.
And that there's some buy-in and some, numbers that Eric's had the chance to look at.
Right.
Or come up with and propose to you how that might happen.
Okay.
Hey, Tony, one other thing. I want to get back to recreation real quick.
Sure.
There are new guidelines. There are new guidelines coming out for spring sports and summer camps sometime in the middle of March from the state.
Right.
I think John will be guided by what comes out of there. He can establish his summer program based on that.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dwight, because he actually reached out today, and Tony and I have a meeting with him, I think, next week.
Yes.
To go over some of those new guidelines. He got can't remember the name. To the point to bring up, Dwight.
Yeah, we understand because we're looking at it too for our league, and we understand sometime around the middle of March they're going to be issuing updated guidelines for spring sports, summer camps, and everything else. So he may want to wait until that gets issued, and then he can address whatever he needs.
Yeah. Okay.
But there definitely will be reduced numbers. It's not back to the way it was last year. I should say a year ago. A year and a half.
It is going to get reduced. I mean the requirements are going to get less stringent. You may be able to fit a little bit more kids in a group rather than 8 to 10. You may go to 12 to 15. Mm-hmm. It depends on how they look at it and how they do it. But I think they are going to be less restrictive from what we're hearing. So
yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. The next is, I believe, benefits. And so I adjusted some of the benefits based on the reductions to some of the staffing numbers that we did. So if you reduce overtime and you reduce part-time wages and the like, FICA and Medicare, of course, get reduced. There was also a reduction in the retiree health care due to some coverage changes for some of our retirees. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Tony. This was a great job.
I want to thank Tony personally. I mean, he kept saying we, but it was pretty much him. We worked together. Tony and I worked on putting this together, but it was Tony's good work, and I really want to thank you personally for your help with this. It's really great. Thank you.
The one last thing I want to mention is that so last year when I put the budget together, we dropped the tax collection rate because we thought maybe we would have reduced tax collections in the current year. We have not seen that, and so this budget increases the tax collection rate back to just a little bit less than where it historically has been. So the tax collector has done a great job of maintaining our excellent tax collection rate, and we have not seen a drop that we thought maybe we would. So if you see the grand list number increases by 0.73%, part of that is because the reserve for uncollected taxes was lowered. So I just want to make that point to you.
Well, I think the flexibility of how you could pay and having that window open made a huge difference, I think, for people.
Yeah, that was a great idea that they had.
Yeah.
On the Amity budget, is that a final number? Have they actually finalized that? Because I know they've been back and forth, and there's still meetings on the budget. So I don't know. Is that going to be a final or will Matt update us? Because I know he sits on that committee, on the financial committee at Amity.
Right. It's my understanding that the Amity Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow evening again to look at reevaluate. Maybe you know more, but I think it's tomorrow night that they're meeting. And Matt, as Dwight said, is on that, and he's going back to ask for some further reduction if possible. Hopefully not in teachers and programming, because I can't personally accept that. So I sent them a letter today actually about that, which I'll get out to you tomorrow. I just didn't have time. So asking that they look at other things. So any other comments, questions, discussion on all of this? And thank you, Tony.
The only other thing I mention is that, and thank you, Beth, for sending along that letter today from Dr. Budd. And I know that he's not proposing right now any reduction in his budget, but I think he's very earnest in terms of wanting to look for any other opportunities. And as there's more clarification about the ESSER 2 funds, if he feels that that is a way to help to offset some of our expenses next year, he will do that. But I don't know what the timing on that is.
Thank you, Sandy. That's a good point. Thank you very much. Anything else? So now we have to vote on all this, correct?
Right.
Okay. So who's the numbers person? We have to first. We do the capital first, correct?
Right.
And we make the motion is to recommend
To the Board of Finance.
To the Board of Finance for their consideration. A total in capital budget improvement program over 6 years of, where's the number?
It's at the bottom of the summary.
209,586.
1 million. Yeah, okay. $1,209,586.00. Correct?
I'll second. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions or no? Okay, hearing none. And then we have operating.
Joe,
Go ahead, Joe.
no, I just wanted to register.
Joe, did you have something to say?
Yes, I wanted to
Okay.
register my name.
Register your nay. Okay. It is a 5-1. Correct? And no abstention. Okay. Any comments on that, Joe? Joe Dye, any comments on Brian?
No, I don't have any comments, just the neighbor.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and next we go to the operating budget. And we recommend to the Board of Selectmen for 21-22 an operating
So you want to do total expenditure budget is total operating budget for expenditures is 52,260,797.
okay, I'll make that.
Yes. And you're going to amend it, Tony?
Yeah, that includes your
Oh, includes the changes? Okay, good. Okay, that's fine. Good. Okay.
Great. Karen, you've got that number? Karen, you've got the number? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
So,
Thank you. Any discussion on the recommendations regarding the operating budget? The motion, rather, sorry. I'll call the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any nays? Is there a nay?
Yes, the nay, Joe.
That's, okay, thank you, Joe Dye. And any abstentions? So it is a 5-0 motion. Okay. Do we have any other business for this evening? I think not. All good. Again, thank you, Tony, for everything, and thank you to every member of the board for all your comments this evening and hard work working on this with us. And with that, I have a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mika. Thanks, Joe. Got everybody seconding that. All in favor? Adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, everybody, stay safe and thanks again. See you soon.
Tony.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah, baby, clean cut hair, fancy cocktails with a dash of despair, dancing to this song, but our feet are flat. But when it's right, it's tight, and I like it like that. Beamish is blowing almost all the time, walking along the shaky tightrope line. Oysters, banana peel, and dirty rats. So when it's right, it's tight, and I like it like that. With your umbrella by your side, the sandbags to quell the rising tide. There are fairies and demons by your side. You cannot believe your eyes, no.